The savanna stretched endlessly under the unforgiving sun, a mosaic of golden grasses and skeletal acacia trees. Rion, a veteran field biologist, moved with the quiet grace of a ghost, his eyes scanning, tracking. The air shimmered with heat, carrying the scent of dust and distant wild sage. He'd been following reports of a lone lioness, separated from her pride for 2 days, and the signs were growing dire. Finally, a shape broke the heat haze on the horizon, a ragged, motionless silhouette against the searing sky. As he drew closer, the stillness of her form sent a cold dread through him. She was emaciated, every rib a stark testament to her suffering. Her fur, once a vibrant tawny, was dull and matted. There was no growl, no warning snarl, just a profound, silent surrender that spoke of impending death. An immediate, visceral pang struck Rian, a connection that bypassed his scientific training and went straight for the core of his being. He couldn't explain it, but the urge to intervene, to pull her back from the precipice, was overwhelming. Drawing to a cautious halt several yards away, Ryan killed the engine, the sudden silence amplified by the vast expanse. He breathed in the familiar, musky scent of a large cat, but beneath it, an unfamiliar metallic tang prickled his nostrils. It was subtle, almost subliminal, yet profoundly unsettling, triggering a deep-seated unease about her condition that went beyond mere starvation. His gaze lingered on her muzzle. Even from this distance, he could see the pale, stiff, broken hairs around her mouth, matted with what looked like dried discharge. This wasn't typical injury from a territorial dispute or a desperate hunt. This was different, sparking his first concrete suspicion of something deeply amiss. The protocols hammered into every wildlife biologist were absolute, non-intervention. Let nature take its course. To interfere was to risk contaminating the wild, to blur the lines between observer and participant, and potentially to invite danger. But as Ryan looked at the dying lioness, his compassion clawed at his conscience. "I couldn't leave her," he whispered, the words heavy with the weight of his decision. His career, perhaps his life, hung in the balance, but the sight of her suffering eclipsed all caution. Moving slowly, deliberately, he retrieved a large water bottle from his vehicle. Each step was measured, his voice a low, reassuring murmur. "Hey there, girl. Easy now." A desperate apex predator, even one at death's door, could lash out. He extended the water, the plastic glinting in the harsh light. Her eyes, milky with suffering, slowly focused on him. And then something extraordinary happened. As their gazes locked, Ryan felt a jolt. There was a flash of something beyond instinct in her amber eyes. Not fear, but a discerning awareness. A silent permission to approach. A moment of profound, unnatural understanding that transcended species. He poured the water into a shallow dish, placing it gently before her. She sniffed, then tentatively lapped, her body shaking with the effort. As the cool liquid hit her parched throat, her breathing steadied, a ragged sigh escaping her. In that fragile moment, a powerful, unspoken bond formed between them, an immediate, unexplainable connection that settled deep in Ryan's soul. He pulled out his satellite radio, his voice tight with urgency, as he described the scene to Dr. Anya Sharma, the nearest veterinary expert. Severe dehydration, hip issues, and unexplained muzzle trauma. "It looks unnatural, Anya." The words hung in the air, weighted with an unspoken question. A distant lion's roar echoed across the savannah, a stark reminder of the clock ticking, of the dangers that lurked. But Ryan's immediate concern had shifted. His focus was no longer just on saving a life, but on the unnatural elements of her condition, a growing, prickling unease that something profoundly wrong had befallen this creature. He carefully examined her hip, noting a clear dislocation, perhaps a fracture that had knit badly. But the surrounding tissue wasn't just inflamed. It felt abnormally dense and scarred, a specific, precise kind of damage that hinted not at an accident, but at a deliberate, unnatural impact. The dust plume heralded their arrival. Zola, Jabari, Dr. Asha, and Kofi, the rapid response veterinary team, moved with practiced efficiency. Their vehicle, a rugged mobile clinic, pulled up alongside Rien's, and within moments, a temporary triage site materialized in the heart of the savannah. Dr. Asha, her face etched with concern, prepared a light sedative dart, her movements precise. The matriarch, despite her weakness, tracked their every move, her gaze disturbingly lucid, assessing each individual with an almost human intensity. The dart found its mark with a soft thud. The matriarch grunted, a low rumble deep in her chest, but instead of the expected panic or struggle, she merely blinked slowly. Her eyes, fixing on Ryan for a moment, conveyed a profound sense of endurance, not fear. It was a sign of her extraordinary intelligence, a quiet understanding of their intent that sent a shiver down Ryan's spine. As the sedative took effect, the team worked in a fluid, silent choreography. Screens were erected to provide shade, an IV drip was swiftly initiated, and Ryan, his hands gloved, meticulously re-examined her hip. "Severe displacement, Asha," he confirmed, his mind racing, trying to reconcile the injury with the unnaturally dense, scarred tissue he'd felt earlier. Kofi, the team's forensic assistant, began his preliminary sweep, swabbing the lioness's mouth and nose. "Ryan, Dr. Asha," he called out, his voice hushed but urgent. "There's a faint, non-organic chemical residue on her tongue. It's not natural." The words hung heavy in the air, confirming the metallic tang Ryan had noticed, hinting at external contamination. Something profoundly wrong. Dr. Asha, meanwhile, was examining the muzzle trauma Ryan had reported. She used a fine-toothed comb to separate the matted hairs, her brow furrowing deeper with each passing second. Then a sharp intake of breath. "Microfractures," she whispered, her voice tight with disbelief. "In the whisker roots, and residue of a high-impact, non-organic projectile on her muzzle. This wasn't an accident, Ryan. This was deliberate." The chilling words echoed his own dawning suspicion. A blood sample rushed through the mobile lab, confirmed their worst fears. Abnormal enzyme levels flashed across the diagnostic screen, markers not natural for a wild animal. This wasn't just contamination. This was targeted intervention, manipulation. Whispers of deliberate act and experimental attacks circulated among the vet team, hushed but urgent, their faces grim. Ryan's chest tightened. This wasn't a sick animal or a tragic accident of the wild. This was something far darker, far more sinister. His resolve hardened. This wasn't natural. The scientific detachment he usually maintained shattered, replaced by a fierce primal protectiveness. All protocol, all previous training faded into insignificance. He knew with absolute certainty that he was entering uncharted territory, and he was ready for what came next. As Dr. Asha administered the reversal drug, the matriarch's eyes flickered open, regaining full awareness. Her gaze immediately fixed on Ryan, a deep, knowing look that spoke volumes without a single sound. It was an acknowledgement, a recognition. Then, emerging from the tall grasses at the edge of their makeshift clinic, two other lions appeared. A younger lioness, sleek and wary, and a powerfully built, sub-adult male. Their contact calls were low, purposeful, almost an inquiry, sensing the shift in the matriarch's condition, sensing the human presence. The younger lioness approached slowly, delicately, then touched noses with the matriarch in an unprecedented gesture of profound tenderness, a silent acknowledgement of her pain and strength. The sub-adult male, however, looked directly at Ryan, his piercing gaze holding a clear, questioning stare. It was as if he was seeking answers, or perhaps offering an alliance. In that moment, a profound realization washed over Ryan. This wasn't just a pride, it was a unit. They were forming an unspoken alliance, sensing his protective intent against an unknown common enemy. A bond far beyond the typical understanding of nature was solidifying before his very eyes. Ryan maintained a respectful distance, observing the pride from the subtle camouflage of his vehicle. The sub-adult male, now seemingly recovered from his initial apprehension, acted as a vigilant sentinel. With deliberate, almost theatrical movements, he stalked the periphery, his low growls and strategic postures enough to dissuade the circling vultures, their patience waning as the sun began its descent. It was more than instinct, it was a conscious, protective act. When the vet team returned for a second round of treatment, the matriarch's acceptance was striking. There was no struggle, no sign of fear, just a quiet resignation as Dr. Asha administered further medication and examined the hip more closely. It was a silent consent, an acknowledgement of their help, a unique display of trust that continued to confound Ryan. This lioness was different. During the procedure, Dr. Asha paused, her probing fingers tracing a hairline fracture near the hip joint. "Ryan," she murmured, her voice laced with unease. "There's a metallic sheen here on the exposed bone. It's almost microscopic, but it's there. Something worked its way into the bone." The detail chilled Ryan to the core, solidifying the unnaturalness of her injuries. This wasn't just an impact. It was an embedded foreign material, precise and deliberate. Later that evening, a flash of spotted fur signaled a leopard, drawn by the scent of the ailing lioness. Instantly, the younger lioness and the sub-adult male rose, moving in a coordinated deterrence. It was almost a tactical formation, their growls synchronized, their movements fluid and purposeful. The matriarch, despite her injury, watched the leopard with an unyielding gaze, her eyes blazing with an indomitable will and leadership that inspired her pride, a silent message of defiance to any predator. As days turned into a week, Ryan observed other anomalies. Unnatural animal migration patterns, herds shifting unexpectedly, bypassing prime grazing lands. Unexplained quiet zones in parts of the savanna where life should have teemed. It hinted at widespread ecological disruption, a pervasive imbalance he couldn't ignore. He witnessed a failed wildebeest hunt, the matriarch attempting to join, a testament to her fierce will, her body betraying her spirit. Her determination, even in her weakened state, deeply impressed Ryan. This wasn't just a wild animal, she was a wower, a survivor. The radio crackled with a new order: relocate the pride to a protected conservancy, a standard procedure for ailing animals. But Ryan knew better. He defied the strict orders, deciding instead to actively investigate the source of the unnatural injuries. His career, his life, all were now on the line. He couldn't shake the feeling that moving them would be a betrayal, severing a fragile thread of understanding that was just beginning to form. That night, distant campfires flickered on the horizon, carried on the breeze with the unmistakable scent of livestock, human presence, conflict. Ryan knew he was now inextricably intertwined with a looming threat, one that extended beyond the lion's immediate well-being. As the fires drew closer, threatening to spill into the pride's territory, Ryan made a risky call. He deployed Unit 4, his remote-controlled drone, equipped with a powerful spotlight and loud siren. It was a non-lethal deterrence meant to scare the lions away from the herder's livestock, preventing a deadly confrontation. He watched as the matriarch, instead of fleeing in blind panic, studied the pulsating light source, analyzing the human threat with a calculated intensity. In that moment, Ryan fully grasped the depth of his involvement. Hunger wasn't their only enemy. He thought, a heavy responsibility settling on his shoulders. They were carrying my decision, my burden. The pride regrouped, their unspoken bond visibly strengthening around the matriarch, their movements suggesting an uncanny awareness of Ryan's aid and the external threat now encroaching upon their world. The line between observer and participant had not just blurred, it had dissolved completely. He was part of their fight now. The matriarch, still limping, but with renewed vigor, stalked a zebra at the fringes of the herd. Her movements were slow, painstaking, yet imbued with an unwavering resolve. She missed the kill, but her sheer determination solidified Ryan's conviction that her suffering was not natural. Her spirit, her will to survive despite debilitating injuries, screamed of an imposed torment. Back at his observation post, Ryan pored over Dr. Asha's data, the enzyme anomalies, the microfractures, the embedded metallic particles. He correlated them with his own meticulous observations of the unusual ecological shifts in the matriarch's extraordinary behavior. A grim pattern emerged, not random misfortune, but an engineered design. It was a blueprint of cruelty, etched onto the very landscape. He knew what he had to do. With a deep breath, Ryan broke protocol, severing the last thread of professional detachment. He left his observation post, his vehicle a silent predator against the dawn. His perilous journey had begun. He was no longer an observer, but an active participant, driven to find the source of the unnatural harm. Hours later, deep in a seldom visited sector of the reserve, he spotted them. Faint, non-standard vehicle tracks, Unlike anything used by park rangers or legitimate researchers, they led into a remote, restricted zone, a path to forbidden secrets. His gut tightened with a mixture of fear and grim satisfaction. Following the tracks on foot, Ryan discovered it, a specialized, non-lethal trap, unlike any he'd ever seen. It was designed for capture, not killing, a chilling testament to its sinister purpose. As he knelt, inspecting the intricate mechanisms, a faint, familiar metallic residue clung to the edges. It was the same precise chemical signature Asha had found on the Matriarch's muzzle and in her bone, the definitive link. Then he saw the logo, emblazoned subtly on a control panel, a stylized black mamba entwined with a double helix, and beneath it, a stark code, Project Chimera. The words resonated with a sickening clarity, revealing a dark organization, a grotesque ambition, bioengineering, animal experimentation. A sudden primal instinct jolted him. He wasn't alone. A glint of metal, barely perceptible in the distant scrub, confirmed it. He was being watched, a hunter who had become the hunted. Before he could react, the younger lioness and the subadult male appeared from the tall grass, their urgent contact calls cutting through the silence. It was a direct warning, their eyes fixed not on him, but on the distant threat he now knew was real. They knew. They understood. An explosion of sound ripped through the air. An ambush. Shots rang out, impacting the ground near him. Non-lethal, but unmistakable. Warning shots. The subadult male, without a moment's hesitation, executed a calculated mock charge, a terrifying roar tearing from his throat. He drew the fire, a diversion, shielding Ryan with incredible intelligence, an act of selfless courage that defied all understanding. Ryan scrambled, adrenaline pumping, making his escape through a tangle of thorny bushes. As he ran, the pieces clicked into place with horrifying precision. Project Chimera wasn't just a bioengineering plot, it was a sinister, illegal operation. The matriarch wasn't a victim of nature. She was an experiment, a living canvas of scientific hubris and ethical depravity. Reaching a secure distance, his heart hammering, Ryan pulled out his satellite phone. "Zola," he gasped, the words tumbling out, urgent and desperate. "This isn't just natural selection, Zola. It's a targeted operation. Black Mamba, Project Chimera. They're out here, and they're watching me." If you've been on the edge of your seat, you haven't seen anything yet. The true horror of Project Chimera is about to unfold, and Ryan's life hangs by a thread. Don't forget to like this video, share it with everyone you know, and subscribe so you don't miss the shocking conclusion of this terrifying conspiracy. Zola, her voice tight with suppressed fear, had finally conceded. Ryan's frantic report, coupled with Dr. Asha's grim confirmation of highly specialized biotech residue, had peeled back the layers of disbelief. She knew the gravity of what he was saying, even if it sounded like a fever dream. Reluctantly, she agreed to assist, but her warning was clear. "Be careful, Ryan. You're a primary target now." With his life now firmly on the line, Ryan raced against time. His first lead came in an unexpected form. The younger lioness, seemingly aware of his quest for answers, subtly guided him to a secluded water source. It was a place she'd returned to often, a site of prior human activity, as if she instinctively knew what he needed to find. There, half buried in the damp earth, Ryan discovered discarded specialized dart casings. The Black Mamba logo was unmistakable, etched into the dark plastic. Nearby, tiny vials of modified sedative, their labels cryptic but chilling, confirmed his suspicions. Undeniable proof of a targeted, sophisticated operation. He then reactivated the hidden GPS tracker he'd placed on the Matriarch. Its erratic coordinates, initially dismissed as a malfunction, now pointed towards a remote, officially protected one, a perfect cover for illicit activities. This was no ordinary research outpost. It was a technological fortress, camouflaged meticulously against the rugged landscape. Under the cloak of a moonless night, Ryan, now aided by a nervous but committed Jabari, located the high-security facility. Its perimeter bristled with surveillance, far beyond anything a typical ranger post would warrant. It hummed with a low, menacing energy. Ryan, a ghost in the shadows, found a vulnerable point and infiltrated. The interior was a nightmare brought to life. Cages filled with experimental animals, some recognizable, others horrifyingly mutated, lined dimly lit corridors. Evidence of genetic manipulation lay scattered on workbenches. Gruesome specimens, detailed schematics for eco-weaponry, and data logs describing enhanced pathogens. It was a grotesque display of power, a twisted vision of science unbound. He found it, hidden amongst hundreds of files. Specimen 734, the Matriarch. The file detailed her capture, her hip destabilization, and muzzle trauma, all meticulously documented as deliberate experiments. They hadn't just injured her, they had tortured her for data. The logs unmasked the mastermind. DEO Victor Thorne, a titan of industry, using conservation as a front for his insidious eco-weaponry research. His vision wasn't preservation, but control through engineered ecological warfare. Suddenly, alarms blared, a piercing shriek that ripped through the silence. Ryan, furiously downloading critical data onto a small, encrypted drive, knew his time was up. Mercenaries alerted, converged, their heavy boots echoing down the corridors, closing in fast. Just as they breached his location, an impossible event occurred. From seemingly nowhere, the Pride appeared outside, unleashing a cacophony of deafening roars. It wasn't just a reaction. It was a perfectly timed, coordinated diversionary tactic. The mercenaries hesitated, confused by the sudden, overwhelming threat outside. That chaos was Ryan's chance. He scrambled through a service hatch, clutching the data drive like a lifeline. He realized then, the Lions weren't just protecting their territory, they were actively fighting back, making him a part of their resistance. An alliance forged in fire and shared vengeance had taken root. Reaching a secure distance, Ryan made a desperate, hushed call. Zola, I have it all. Evidence. Thorn. Project Chimera. Get ready. He sent the damning evidence, hoping it wasn't already too late. Rian and Jabari sprinted from the chaotic facility, the encrypted data drive clutched tightly in Ryan's hand. The roar of Thorn's armed drones was already closing in, their relentless hum a soundtrack to their desperate escape. Ground teams alerted to their presence were not far behind. The Savannah, once a sanctuary, was now a battleground. But they were not alone. With astonishing coordination, the younger Lioness and the sub-adult male, appearing as if from the very earth, strategically intercepted Thorn's pursuing vehicles. It was a tactical game, played out with primal precision. Their precise attacks, powerful disabling blows to tires and engines, were non-lethal yet incredibly effective, creating crucial diversions for Ryan's escape. Their intelligence, their ability to cooperate in such a complex manner, was breathtaking. Ryan, seizing every precious second, reached a secure comms point, his fingers flying across the satellite link. He had made his agonizing, career-ending decision. The truth had to get out. He broadcast the incriminating evidence of Thorn's Black Mamba bioweaponry to every global media outlet he could access, shattering the silence that had protected them for so long. Victor Thorn, alerted to the broadcast, exploded with fury. He launched a desperate counteroffensive, redirecting his remaining forces to corner Ryan. But again, the Pride moved. The Matriarch, despite her grave injury, emerged, leading a calculated diversion. She used her profound knowledge of the terrain and an uncanny understanding of human behavior to lure Thorn's lead team into a tactical ambush point, a narrow defile where their vehicles would be bottlenecked. Her courage, her strategic thought, even with a damaged hip, was astounding. She bought them precious time. Just as Thorn's forces were about to overwhelm the choke point, Zola's rapid response team, having circumvented corrupt local authorities with a well-placed, anonymous tip to national intelligence, converged on the facility. They secured the site, disarming and arresting Thorn's remaining mercenaries in a swift, coordinated strike. Victor Thorn was captured, his face contorted in a sneer of defiance. Even as he was cuffed, he spat threats, hinting at a larger, global eco-terror network and its powerful benefactors. "You think this is over, Ryan?" he sneered. "This is just the beginning." Dr. Asha, examining the Matriarch after the skirmish, confirmed her hip was gravely damaged, a permanent injury. Yet her resilience was extraordinary, a defiance of typical physiology. She was a living symbol of their fight, a testament to the unyielding spirit of nature. Rian reflected on Thorne's words. He wasn't just a criminal, he was a pawn. The Black Mamba was part of a hidden corporate-side governmental cover-up, the true enemy far greater, far more insidious. He knew his career in traditional conservation was over. He was now a renegade, marked and exposed. But a new purpose had been forged, to fight the unseen war to protect nature, allied with the extraordinary animals he had saved, whose intelligence and loyalty had fundamentally altered his understanding of the wild. The matriarch, now truly free, led her pride away, a silent exodus into the heart of the savannah. Her story, once one of suffering, was now a testament to survival, intelligence, and a miraculous alliance between man and beast. Rian watched them go, a profound sense of both loss and resolve settling over him. The immediate battle was won, but he knew with chilling certainty that the unseen war for the wilderness against an enemy lurking in the shadows had only just begun. The dry-boned sky of the savannah, the shimmering heat bending the air into mirages. It was under such a stark canvas that Ryan first saw her, a fragile silhouette against the horizon, ribs like the timbers of a wrecked ship. That sight, that tremor in her breathing, ignited a conflict within him that spiraled into a global conspiracy. What began as a desperate plea to save a single life transformed into an unprecedented alliance, defying every rule of nature and science. The matriarch, once a victim of Project Chimera, had become a symbol, her extraordinary intelligence and the pride's tactical genius revealing a hidden war against those who would weaponize life itself. Ryan's career was gone, a casualty of his defiance, but a new path, an unseen war lay before him. The fight against Victor Thorne, against the Black Mamba and its powerful shadowy benefactors, was far from over. As he watched the matriarch lead her pride strong once more, their bond a testament to resilience and unity. He knew his purpose was clear. The whisper of the wind through the tall gold grass now carried not just the hum of the savannah, but the echoes of a truth unleashed, a fight for the very soul of the wild. End. Words 190.